Mike and Jillian, for more on this now, we're going to bring in Ohio Congressman Warren Davidson. He's a former Army Ranger and member of both the House Freedom Caucus and House Financial Services Committee. Thank you for joining us this morning, Congressman.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So listen, even if all the backline deal points aren't negotiated and finalized beforehand, do you think President Trump should meet with Kim Jong-un?
Absolutely. I think President Trump's made amazing amount of progress in the North Korean peninsula. And you think, as we remember Memorial Day this weekend, there's no place on the planet that shows the power of America's presence and ideas than the Korean peninsula better. The 38th parallel has been protected by Americans since 1953. And obviously from 1950 to 1953, we made the peace, made the path possible that South Korea could exist with a first world economy, first world connections, and just across that border, we see the different ideas, what is produced there in North Korea. So I think it's an opportunity to be able to provide a path to peace and prosperity for the North Korean people that I don't think anyone would have ever believed when President Trump took office. So I think we should do our best to make this possible, and I think President Trump's done a great job of diminishing expectations, so it's not a, oh, we have to agree at any price. He's going to come out with a deal that means something, or no deal.
And after the highly anticipated summit, Congressman, how soon do you think there will be a final deal on the table? And as negotiations continue, what should the American people expect to be outlined in that final agreement?
Well, I think the president's laid out some good expectations, and I think Secretary Pompeo will be a great asset in that process. And I think the peace is possible, but it's important to keep it framed in a way that the president's done to say, hey, we are hoping for good things, but we're not committed to get a deal at any cost. And I think that's really what you see in contrast with Iran, where President Obama made it clear that he wanted a deal and everything depended on getting a deal, and it made us negotiate from a very weak position. President Trump's gone in with good expectations. A lot of hope that we can come to something, but nothing that says I'm going to do a deal just for the sake of doing one.
And do you think this deal should be rubber stamped or sanctioned if there is not complete denuclearization on the part of Kim Jong-un?
Well, I think a nuclear-free peninsula would serve us well, and I don't think it would be good to signal anything other than that in advance of the negotiations.
Okay. Meanwhile, as you well know, Congressman, there are some critics of the president's process. Let's listen.
They were on a par with each other. He got global recognition and regard. He's the big winner. And when he got this letter from the president saying, okay, never mind, he must be having a giggle fit right there now in North Korea, in Pyongyang.
The art of diplomacy is a lot harder than the art of the deal.
Meanwhile, some of the president's supporters would say this is part of his process. He has always said in the beginning that you should be able to walk out of the room, leave the table. So as this plays out on the global geopolitical stage, are there any pitfalls or potential political landmines that cause apprehension on your part, sir?
Well, I think the one concern is that we do the deal, and the president's really taken that off the table in a way that says we're committed to getting a deal. Then you feel like, oh, well, we can't leave empty-handed. And I think the president's perfectly willing to leave empty-handed or cancel the meeting if he doesn't feel like we can have a productive discussion. And I think the pitfall would be that if we did a deal that somehow weakens South Korea, weakens our allies in the region, and doesn't have possible verification. And you look at what's the pitfalls of these agreements. North Korea is threatening us with weapons that they committed to give up with under President Clinton. And if you look in Iran, one of the weakest deals that we've negotiated, the reason that it wound up so weak is we signaled to everyone in the world that we wanted a deal no matter what. And we paid for the privilege of getting that deal. I can assure you that President Trump is not going to illegally transfer over $100 billion to the North Koreans, just to say we have a deal.
Yeah, and Congressman, in about this North Korea potential deal, as you monitored China throughout this process, China, what are you focusing on?
Well, China, part of the reason we were able to get in this deal is President Trump has really done a great job of building a relationship with the Chinese people and with their leader in particular. And obviously, the biggest amount of pressure that can be brought to bear on North Korea is China pressure. And when you think about the dynamics of trade that we've talked about, China doesn't want a trade war either. You know, I've been back and forth to China as a manufacturing guy before I was in office. Prior to that was in the Army. I never thought I was going to China under friendly terms and conditions. I think we'd be better off to trade. I think the Chinese realize we'd be better off to trade, and they'd rather not see something that really disrupts that. So I think all those things have come together to put us in this place where China can work in the same direction as the United States to apply pressure on North Korea. And really, it provides an opportunity for the North Korean people to enjoy the same kind of freedoms, peace, and prosperity that South Korean people have enjoyed for decades now.
What were you manufacturing, by the way? Just curious.
Metal stampings, plastic injection molding, and some other tooling.
You still have that business?
No, my friend and partner owns it and runs it now, and I just do some commercial real estate and focus on Congress.
What's the name of the business?
Integral Manufacturing.